All right, I thought this could be a fun idea for a video. Power rankings. No one's ever thought of this before. First person to ever come up with this. Okay, no, it's a very common thing, but I'm doing mine a little bit differently than the average person does it. I am not really looking into which team do I think could beat which other team. That's not really how I'm viewing it right now. I'm simply viewing it as who do I think has the best odds to win the Super Bowl, which is slightly different. For example, there might be a team that's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs that's playing good football right now, but doesn't matter. They're not going to actually even make this list. I'm only doing the teams that have a chance to make the playoffs. So that's how I'm viewing all of that. But yeah, let's just get into the list. There are 24 teams still technically with a chance to win the Super Bowl. Let's see who has the best chance. Starting off with some teams that have very slim odds to make it, but are still technically in contention. The Bears, probably the least likely team to make the postseason right here. They would need to win out, and they would need a lot of help. I think they would probably need a Vikings loss. They would need I believe a Saints loss at a certain point. They played a Falcons, so they would obviously need to win that game. They would also need I believe either the Rams or Seahawks would have to lose out for them to get in. So technically possible, but very unlikely. So that's why they're at 24. The Raiders and Broncos actually need about the similar amount of things to happen. I just feel like the Raiders are a little bit better of a team right now. Broncos just benched their quarterback, so it would be quite the run if either of these teams found a way to win the Super Bowl. Neither one probably that likely. They would need, I think, honestly, their best odds might be the Chiefs losing out and either of them winning out to win the division, which would be weird. Falcons, also a team that I actually think are an okay team, and they do look better with Taylor Heineke. But again, situation is tough. They're going to need to win out, and they're going to need some help. I don't know if they can really get in the a wild card spot, so they might need Tampa Bay. They need some horrific thing to happen. They need a big upset to happen. They need Tampa Bay to lose to Carolina. They need the Seahawks to lose to the Cardinals. They need something like that to have a chance to get in. So technically possible, but unlikely. Okay, next for Saints, kind of similar to the Falcons. I think I like the Saints a little bit better than the Falcons at this point, not by much. They're very similar quality of teams, and they would need very similar things to happen. So I think with the Saints, you at least have a little bit of a benefit where they play Tampa Bay, which that might be their way of getting in. So that's kind of why I would put them slightly ahead here. But again, probably need to win out in Tampa Bay to lose out. Chance of a wild card too, but like with the Falcons, those two basically need the same thing to happen. The Steelers, so they're here at 19. Part of why they're a little bit higher than a couple of these other teams is because they're the Steelers. It seems like they find ways to make things happen in a lot of ways. For Pittsburgh, though, really, for them to get into the playoffs, they need to win out, which if they do, they actually might get in, but they have a tough schedule to do that. So that's kind of where I would say that at least they have an opportunity where if they do get hot all of a sudden and go on a run, they can make it happen, but still not a team I'm really realistically even considering as a playoff team right now, but it's possible. Vikings and Packers, both are right next to each other. Basically, loser is out when they play each other, so that's a very interesting game. Winner is in, loser is out. But for me, the reason why I went with I went with Green Bay over Minnesota is I think that for a team to go on a deep run, you're probably going to need, neither of these teams feel like they're go on a deep run caliber teams, but it does feel like maybe Jordan Love could all of a sudden, get hot at the right time. And, if Christian Watson goes off, maybe they can make something happen. They have beaten really good teams this season. So has Minnesota. But it just feels like, I'll take the good offense with bad defense over good defense with bad offense to win a Super Bowl. Although, again, neither seems particularly likely. Next four, we're getting to some legitimate playoff teams at this point. These are teams that either, control their own destiny to make the playoffs or have a chance to make the playoffs, things like that. Cincinnati still probably needs to win out. The reason I put them a little higher, though, is just, if Jake Browning maybe just stinks against the Steelers but is good against other teams, maybe there is the potential for this team to actually be good enough to go on a deep run, even though they need a lot to happen to get in. So, again, highest odds to win the Super Bowl. That's what the power rankings is. Colts and Texans, they both are going to play each other the final game of the season, and that probably determines who gets into the playoffs between those two teams, which is why they're at 14 and 15 respectively. And for the Texans, I think maybe why you could even argue that it could be a little higher is the CJ Stroud thing. Like, there's a way they could go on a run. If CJ Stroud gets back, he gets full 100%, and then the offense starts picking up, maybe they should be higher than some other teams. But again, is that going to happen? I don't know. So that's why it's a little bit lower. In Jacksonville, I mean, they have a path as well, right? Next up with the Jacksonville Jaguars at 13, them similar to the Texans in a sense where it's like things are going wrong, but if they can get healthy, this defense has looked great at times, especially the coverage unit has looked great at times. Hasn't lately, but has had it happen. Lawrence has looked great at times, hasn't lately, and he's very banged up at this point. And you still have like that, can Calvin Ridley step up? Can they do that? I don't think so, which is why they're a lot lower on this list, but I still think they probably make the playoffs, so that's why I have them there. Okay, next up, I mean, these are just playoff teams at this point. Teams I'd be shocked, if maybe not shocked in the Rams case, but, I think with the other three, I feel really confident do make it into the playoffs. And I think all four of these teams make it in. I would be surprised if one of them did not. The Buccaneers at 12. Listen, Baker Mayfield's looked awesome these past couple of weeks, but I still think it's fair to question, can he do it for 4 straight games to win a Super Bowl? Also, this defense has, definitely had its moments, but it has had some really rough games on top of it, and with, the way the secondary keeps getting banged up, they just don't have the depth there to, I think, go on a deep run, but, definitely a playoff caliber team. The Browns are a team where it's like, this Joe Flacco thing is so interesting, right? Because before, all season I've kind of been, down on Cleveland and saying, listen, not going to happen. They don't have a quarterback. There's other issues offensively. All of a sudden, Joe Flacco's coming in and listen, he's had his bad games too. He's had some tough moments and he needs to stop turning the ball over so much if they're going to go on a deep run. But with a great defense, if they can have an okay offense, I can paint the narrative. I can see it. So these are teams that have chances. They have a legitimate chance for sure. The Rams, I just feel like Stafford's playing so hot right now. This team has gotten better every week, essentially, and they're definitely a team that I could see going on a deep run, similar to how they did it, when they won the Super Bowl. Remember, they were the 3 seed that year, which isn't the 7 seed, but still, it's not like they were the team that year, but they just got hot at the right time. So I wouldn't bet against them necessarily. Seattle, though, I do think is a good team. They've had their inconsistent moments, which again is why you're not in the top 8 here, but they've had some really good moments as well. And again, can they get hot at the right time to play defense well enough? They play offense well enough. Could that be enough to go on a deep run? It's possible. Next, 4, there might be some hot takes here. I'm not sure. First, number 8, the Buffalo Bills. Listen, they still have got to get into the playoffs. They don't have that spot locked up at all, although it's starting to look a lot better. In fact, when I did my predictions machine thing, I had them losing the final game of the season to the Dolphins and still getting into the playoffs. So it's looking a lot better now than it was a month ago. Josh Allen's great, but it is still man, this team, can we rely on them to play 4 straight games without having a dud? Probably not. They will lay an egg here and there, and because of that, I think it's fair to have some concerns about some of this stuff. So yeah, a lot of stuff to like about Buffalo, but there's enough stuff to dislike. I can't put them in the top 7. Number 7 is the Lions, who are, the defense, I think, is why I can't put them much higher, but their offense still is so good. All these teams have legitimate threats to win it all, and what the Lions have that a couple of teams that I put above them do not have is a legitimate shot at the 1 seed. They win out, which it's not an easy schedule to win out, but if they do win out and San Francisco drops another one, they would be the 1 seed. So that's possible and that's exciting, but I think San Francisco probably wins out, and I think the Lions probably end up as the 2 or 3 seed, which is still not a bad place to be. The Dallas Cowboys, I still think are a very good team. I still do have some concerns, I feel about just the makeup of this roster, but those concerns haven't really showed up too much this season. Maybe, again, in the Miami game, they weren't able to get a ton of consistent offense going, but I don't know. I think they're a great team. I think they have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. And number 5, some people are going to disagree with this, but listen, the reality is, as bad as this offense has looked at times, it's still, by pretty much every metric, has been around top 10 in a lot of these categories. Now, it's been fringe top 10, sometimes 11 or 12, but they've still been a good offense, and they're a great defense. They have really an elite level defense. So when you throw on those two things, yeah, this is a team that can win a Super Bowl, especially when you factor in Patrick Mahomes could go off and just win you a game, which you might need. So, while I can't put them in the top 4 because of their issues, like, I do think there's a higher chance that the Chiefs get hot at the right time and still go on a deep run than these other teams that I still think are really good, just because, like, yeah, quarterback matters a lot. Defense still does matter, and while the receiving core and offensive line has been an issue, maybe not quite as big of an issue as some people are making it out to be, although, again, I can't put them higher because of those issues. I also should mention, I believe I put the Cowboys in championship contender tier, and then the Chiefs I did not put in championship contender tier when I did my tier rankings, so there's an inconsistency here, but I don't know. When I made that video, that's how I felt about it. Now, even though the Chiefs had a bad loss in the middle of that, I'm starting to feel a little differently, so that's just, changed my mind, I guess, in the recording of that video. Finally, top 4, the Eagles, another team which, like, listen, they've had some tough losses, and even that win against the Giants was not great, but still have a chance at the 1 seed as well, like the Detroit Lions. That could go a long way. I still think that matters a lot. We saw them last year, have a great start to the season, look, unbeatable through 10 to 12 weeks or so. They lost 3 straight, I think without Hurts, but still, they were then able to kind of rebound and still go on a run. Now, they had the 1 seed last year. This year, they don't, so that hurts things. But still, I think there's a lot to like about this team. The defense does scare you. It just does. But in the NFC, I do factor that in. There's less threats than in the AFC, so because of that, I still think the Eagles have a good chance. The Dolphins, I mean, hard to argue with this. The Dolphins, if they win out their last 2 games of the season, they're the 1 seed in the AFC. Their offense has looked awesome all season to the point where they have 2 MVP candidates, Tyreek Hill and Tua, and on top of it, their defense has now played great football as of late. So the only issue with them is there's 2 teams I like a little better right now. 49ers were kind of everyone's number 1, but I don't know. The Ravens just kind of beat them pretty badly. You kind of got to put the Ravens at number 1 when the Ravens also have a better record, I think. What the Ravens have done this season has been incredible. Either of those 2 teams absolutely could win a Super Bowl. My prediction would be that they play each other in the Super Bowl, although, again, a lot can still happen. If you ask me, would any one team win the Super Bowl, my guess, I'm going to take the field over any one team, right? Just because it's hard to get to the Super Bowl, but I think that the Ravens have the best chance to win it. Those are my power rankings. Why am I stupid? Tell me why you disagree with me in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.